Decoding Putin's endgame in Eastern Europe. What does Vladimir Putin really want in Eastern Europe? Is it about Ukraine, NATO, or something far bigger? To understand Russia's moves today, we have to decode a long game, one that mixes history, power, and survival. This isn't just about borders, it's about the future of Europe, and maybe even the global order itself. 1. Unraveling the grand chessboard. Eastern Europe is more than Ukraine. From the Baltics to the Balkans, flashpoints simmer, military buildup in Kaliningrad, frozen conflicts in Georgia and Moldova, cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns across the region. For Putin, these aren't isolated battles, they're moves on a grand chessboard, historical grievances. For decades, Putin has railed against NATO expansion, calling the collapse of the Soviet Union the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. In his worldview, Russia was robbed of its rightful sphere of influence. Land or legacy? Analysts debate whether this is about territory, resources, or security buffers. But for Putin, it's also personal. To cement his legacy as the man who restored Russia's power after decades of decline. 1. The economic squeeze and strategic play. Sanctions and resilience. Since 2014, Western sanctions have hammered Russia's economy. Yet Moscow has adapted. It built financial reserves, redirected trade, and found creative ways to bypass restrictions. The ruble took hits, but Russia kept funding its campaigns. Energy leverage remains Putin's ace. Europe's reliance on Russian oil and gas gave Moscow leverage for years. Now with pipelines cut and sanctions biting, Russia has shifted exports to China, India, and other non-Western buyers, forging new alliances that weaken Western pressure. Hybrid warfare. Beyond tanks and missiles, Russia weaponizes migration, cyber attacks, and disinformation. By destabilizing neighbors and fueling division inside the EU, Moscow can weaken the West without firing a shot. For 1. Internal imperatives and succession scenarios. At home, foreign adventures aren't just strategy, they're survival. Domestic support. By framing conflicts as a fight against NATO and Western aggression, Putin bolsters his image as Russia's defender. Even when living standards fall, the narrative of Fortress Russia rallies support. The Siloviki's role. Behind Putin stands the Siloviki, powerful figures from Russia's security and intelligence networks. They shape strategy, keep rivals in check, and ensure loyalty. After Putin, but what happens next? Will a loyal successor continue his aggressive stance? Or could internal power struggles reshape Russia's foreign policy? The answer may define Eastern Europe's future for decades. 1. The West's response and Eastern European resilience, NATO's posture. In response to Russia's aggression, NATO has bolstered its eastern flank, deploying troops to Poland, the Baltics, and Romania. Military spending is rising, and old Cold War-era strategies are being dusted off. While Europe has imposed sweeping sanctions, cracks show. Energy shortages, economic strain, and political divides test EU solidarity. Moscow counts on those fractures widening, but nations like Poland, Lithuania, and Romania aren't passive. They've fortified defenses, pushed for stronger NATO commitments, and emerged as frontline voices shaping Western strategy. 1. Projecting the future, scenarios and stakes. So what's Putin's endgame? 3 scenarios stand out. 1. Frozen conflicts. Russia sustains low-intensity wars and proxy conflicts, bleeding its neighbors while preventing NATO expansion. 1. Escalation. A miscalculation or provocation spirals into wider war, dragging NATO directly into confrontation. 3. The long game. Putin doesn't need to win quickly. He just needs to outlast Western resolve, betting that democracies will tire while Russia endures. But one thing is certain, Russia's strategy in Eastern Europe isn't short-term. It's about rewriting the security architecture of Europe, ensuring Moscow remains a power broker for decades to come. Decoding Putin's endgame isn't about predicting his next move, it's about seeing the bigger picture. For Russia, Eastern Europe is the front line of identity, security, and survival. For the West, it's a test of unity and endurance. And the outcome will shape not just Europe, but the balance of power in the entire world. The question is, who will blink first?